call for News Central. And I'm glad to be here today because we are going to witness
plus cloud management for energy, and just to deliver that special measurable social value that we kind of create to solve those grid pitfalls or shortfalls or whatever the case might be in terms of if it's weak or if it's not available.
Hi, I am Banker. I am the creative director of Banker Cuckoo, which is a fashion and lifestyle brand based in Lagos. We design prints that are inspired by nature. In fact, nature is such a huge backbone of my business, and I tell that through my prints and my silhouettes, and it all flows very well. As nature is such a huge part of my story, I couldn't help but ensure that we're giving back to our natural environment in Nigeria. So right now we are planting 10,000 trees throughout the country. We've already planted 1,000, and we look forward to planting 9,000 more before the end of next year. And we really try and prioritize using safe dyes, especially because we're a print-based business.
MITI-METH is actually a tangible expression of the message that I had been preaching on waste recovery and utilization. And what actually inspired MITI-METH was my encounter with water hyacinth on the Lagos Lagoon. So the water hyacinth is actually harvested from the waterways. And what we do is we sun dry it. So the communities actually sun dry the harvested water hyacinth. And it's at 5% dry weight that's actually woven into fibers, ropes. And those ropes are then used to make different types of items for the home and for lifestyle as well. So for example, this particular product that I'm looking at, which is a runner, is actually woven from water hyacinth, and it's woven on the loom.
I believe the participants at this conference would have so many takeaways. So it's an opportunity that creates a platform of shared knowledge, shared experiences, whereby a lot more participants can draw from other people's experiences and how ESG has sort of repositioned their businesses. So it's really going to be an enriching experience for people who come to attend this and participate in this conference.
As Nigeria's leading development finance institution, sustainability is deeply integrated into our mandate. It is a cause we champion, ensuring that conversations around responsible business practices and long-term impact are at the forefront of national discourse. Our role at the Bank of Industry goes beyond financing. We are building the capacity of MSMEs to embed global best practices into their operations. In doing so, we help them align with Nigeria's national development goals, creating jobs, driving inclusivity, protecting the environment, and strengthening industrial resilience. At BOI, we are catalysts, committed to shaping a future where Nigerian businesses are both competitive and responsible. It is therefore my pleasure to welcome you to the first Bank of Industry ESG Conference, a platform to strengthen collaboration, co-create solutions, and accelerate Nigeria's transition to a sustainable.
Put our hands together, put our hands together. Need I say more? Not at all. I'd also like to announce that we would recognize some of the very key. Key personalities who are here with us this morning in the course of the entire event. But let me quickly, though you saw him in the video, let me quickly recognize one who is. Let me quickly recognize one who is here with us. Please let's put our hands together for ED Corporate Finance, Sustainability and Investments, Bank of Industry. Mr. Rotimi Akinde, please. You can rise so we can recognize you. Thank you. I like it when I see corporate finance, money, I'd like to be your very good friend. We'd also like to recognize Ms. Mabel Ndagi, ED Public Sector Intervention Programs. Please let's put our hands together as well, please. Thank you so much. And I also have a long list of other distinguished guests who are seated here. 12 speakers. So if I were you, I would open my jotter, take my pen, write down how I can start to adopt ESG. It's a whole lot. If you read about it, you will not get to the end of it. But the beautiful thing is, the future is ESG. And that's why we at the Bank of Industry, we're already preempting, we're thinking, we're moving ahead, we're even there and waiting for you to take our time to listen to the welcome address. Now, this address is very key, like I mentioned, although you did see him in the video, but he's going to be here on stage to address us and give us a welcome note. Without further ado, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, if your hands are not tired, please clap the loudest as I welcome on stage the MD CEO, Bank of Industry, Mr. Dr. Olasupo Olusi.
The DG of LCCI, Dr. Chinwe Amona. Other distinguished speakers, invited guests, my friends and colleagues from the Bank of Industry, ladies and gentlemen. The economy we want to build for the future. Today's gathering reflects our shared conviction that sustainability is a strategic imperative and a key driver of enterprise growth, industrial competitiveness, and inclusive national development. Through this conference, we are bringing together stakeholders from across sectors to shape the future of Nigeria's sustainable industrial journey. As Nigeria's foremost DFI, BOI stands at the intersection of finance and development. Our mandate goes beyond lending. It is also about catalyzing transformation, which I'm sure you heard in the video when I said that. Supporting industries to grow in ways that are both profitable and responsible. It is about ensuring that we industrialize, we also safeguard the environment, uplift our communities, and strengthen governance across our focus sectors. At BOI, we believe that sustainability is about helping our customers build stronger, more resilient businesses that can thrive in a rapidly changing world. The global economy, as you all know, is shifting towards one that rewards responsibility, transparency, and sustainability. Therefore, Nigerian businesses must be equipped to compete and prosper in this new landscape of the global economy. Now, this is especially true for our small and medium enterprises, which, as you all know, is the backbone of Nigeria's economy. MSMEs account for over 80% of Nigerian businesses, contribute nearly half of our GDP, and employ millions of Nigerians. Yet, many still face barriers in understanding what ESG means in practice and how to embed these principles in their daily operations, and how doing so, more importantly, can make them more bankable, competitive, and future-ready. This conference aims to bridge that knowledge gap by providing a practical platform where policymakers, financiers, business owners, investors, and sustainability experts can share insights, exchange experiences, and co-create solutions. Our goal is simple: to empower Nigerian enterprises to grow sustainably and profitably. I encourage all of us to exchange ideas, forge collaborations that will shape the future of Nigerian enterprises. By the end of this event, I am confident and that we will leave with a very shared vision, one where Nigerian enterprises grow stronger, greener, and more competitive in the global economy. I am sanguine that the objectives that we set out today will be achieved. Thank you, and once again, welcome to the Bank of Industry's inaugural ESG conference.
I am sure we can do better. Please put your hands together. Let's keep clapping, keep clapping, keep clapping. Thank you. Dr. Olasupo Olusi, the MD, CEO, Bank of Industry, with that welcome address. A lot of points to pick out from that welcome address. It shows that we are on the right path. All we need to do is connect and, most importantly, take advantage of what we have here today. And talking of what we have here today, I would like to bring on stage for the goodwill message our next speaker. But before then, I do understand that some of us are asking for the program. Do you have the program with you? Can you signify? If you don't have, just put your hand up. Do you have the program? If you don't have, okay, let's go with if you don't have. Okay, so we're going to put it on the screen there. I don't know if you have a smartphone, just try and zoom in, and you could just, it takes you straight to the program, all right? I want to see those who have tried so that we can indicate that you do have it. Okay, it's there on the screen. Just scan there to get a soft copy or e-copy so you can follow through with what we have. Well, if you have the program, you'd take note that we're moving to the goodwill messages. And who better to start with the goodwill messages than one who we have here with us? He is a Deputy Country Director, Agence Française de Développement. I hope I got that right. My French is a bit funny, though, but I can try. Well, we do have Mahamadou Diarra, who's here with us. So please, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, would like to welcome on stage for the goodwill message. Please put your hands together for Mahamadou Diarra, Deputy Country Director, Agence Française de Développement, AFD, Nigeria. I'm sure we can do better. Please, let's clap, let's clap, let's clap. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning. I'm trying to do like the MD. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to stand on already existing protocol. It is an honor for me to speak today on one important aspect of the partnership my institution, the French Development Agency, has with the Bank of Industry. First of all, I would like to thank the bank, in particular the Managing Director, Dr. Olasupo Olusi, and all the bank management team for inviting AFD to this conference. As a donor, AFD pays close attention to how the potential environmental and social impact of its funded projects are assessed, managed, and monitored, not only within our own operations, but also through the practices of the partners we work with, like BOI. One of our key responsibilities as a development institution is to ensure that the financial institutions we support apply the same level of environmental and social diligence that we would require if we were to finance directly the project or an SME. To this end, we provide technical guidance and assistance to support partner institutions in designing and strengthening environmental and social management systems. Such systems aim to prevent, mitigate, or compensate for adverse ENS impact of finance project, while also improving the partner institutions' overall ENS practices. Beyond the partner institution, our support are meant to build the ESG management system of the final beneficiaries. Indeed, it is at the level of the final beneficiaries and the sub-project that the environmental and social impact are materialized. We are very pleased to be supporting the Bank of Industry in improving its ESG management system through the Transforming Financial System for Climate program, the TFSC program, which is a program that covers 17 countries in Africa and Latin America and is co-financed by our institution and the Green Climate Fund. The goal of the program is to promote investment in climate technologies by addressing financial and technical barriers to enable borrowing by both public and private sectors. In Nigeria, through BOI, the program is contributing to the densification of the financial flows towards more diversified private sector projects that better serve the energy transition. In addition to the 100 million euro financial support, BOI is receiving technical assistance, as I said, and capacity building in several areas, including identification and development of eligible bankable climate-related projects, definition and implementation of a climate finance strategy, management of environmental and social risks. So we commend BOI for its strong commitment and ongoing effort in advancing ESG practices, of which the organization of this very conference is a clear demonstration. Indeed, as the leading development bank in Nigeria, BOI is uniquely positioned to foster responsible business practices and drive sustainable transformation. Around the world, development partners, including AFD, are working to harmonize their standards and build mutual trust. For instance, the World Bank and the Asian Development Bank recently signed full mutual reliance framework to streamline their due diligence processes, particularly in co-finance operations. This growing convergence among development partners means that the work being done by BOI today will go beyond AFD financing. It will help position BOI as a trusted partner and facilitate BOI's access to funding from a wide range of other international financiers. In this context, we consider this effort as a structural and strategic investment of BOI's long-term positioning as a leading, responsible, and trusted development finance institution, strongly contributing in building resilient and responsible enterprises in Nigeria. At AFD, thank you. At AFD, we are very pleased to be part of this journey. You can count on us. Thank you.
Once again, I'm sure we can do much, much better. Please put your hands together for Mahamadou Diarra. Thank you. Thank you for that. We'd like to move on now, and this time we'll be going straight to the keynote address. The keynote address will be given here live on stage. But before we do that, let's introduce to you the speaker for the keynote address. Please watch the screen.
Tenioye Majekodunmi. Mrs. Tenioye Majekodunmi is a climate finance expert and environmental lawyer with over 17 years of leadership in clean energy and climate governance. Of Nigeria's National Council on Climate Change, NCCC, she drives national climate policy, finance frameworks, and international negotiations. Please welcome Mrs. Tenioye.
Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together as I make welcome on stage for the keynote address, Ms. Tenioye Majekodunmi, Director General, National Council on Climate Change, NCCC. Please just keep clapping, please. Keep clapping, please. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for having me here. I'm very, very excited to be here. MD, CEO, my brother. distinguished members of the board, captains of industry, developed partners, esteemed guests, and all protocols duly observed. Ladies and gentlemen, I stand on all existing protocols, and I want to wish you all a very good morning. It is a privilege to join you at this landmark event. Not ideals, but they are actually strategic imperatives for growth and survival. Across the globe, economies are being shaped by climate realities, shifting investors' expectations, and rapid technological change. The transition to a low-carbon future is underway, and it will profoundly affect how our businesses compete, attract finance, and how we all build resilience. For Nigerian SMEs, who account for over 80%, as the MD so eloquently said, of the employment and nearly 50% of GDP, this transition presents both risk and opportunity. And I like to focus more on the latter than the former. Those that adapt early by embedding ESG principles into their operations will not just survive, but they will thrive in a changing world. Let me first commend the Bank of Industry for its leadership in advancing sustainability through its recently launched Sustainability Finance Framework, the SFF. And I remember that very clearly when that was being put together, and I was quite excited. And the board directors and everybody on the board, management team, we're very excited to be able to put this together, and it's commendable that you were able to pull through and make it happen. So, a round of applause to BOI for that. This framework is more than a document. It's a blueprint for how finance can be directed to drive inclusive, climate-smart, and responsible industrial growth. And by aligning its lending and investment practices with global ESG and sustainable finance principles, BOI is setting a new national standard, one that positions Nigerian enterprises to access green and sustainable finance domestically and internationally. At the National Council on Climate Change, our mandate, which clearly aligns with that of the renewed hope agenda of the President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's regime, is to coordinate and drive Nigeria's transition to a climate-resilient and low-emission economy. ESG principles sit at the very heart of this mission, and we are strengthening Nigeria's ESG ecosystem through several key actions. One, policy and regulatory alignment, and this is done by the integration of ESG metrics into our national climate policy instruments, such as the Climate Change Act of 2021, and of course, our recently submitted the Nationally Determined Contribution, NDC 3.0, and forthcoming National Carbon Market Framework. Sectoral ESG guidelines, working with the ministries such as the Federal Ministry of Trade and Industry, BOI, and development partners. The NCCC is developing sector-specific ESG guidelines, starting with manufacturing, energy, and agriculture, to support enterprises in aligning with sustainable practices. Thirdly is our ESG data and reporting framework. We have established a national climate and ESG data repository to enable consistent reporting, benchmarking, and verification of sustainability performance across sectors, as this will empower investors and financial institutions to make informed ESG-aligned decisions. And lastly, incentives and access to climate finance. We're working very closely with Ministry of Finance as well as BOI and other partners to design incentive mechanisms, including tax and credit support, to reward businesses that adopt strong ESG practices. The opportunity for our Nigerian SMEs is huge, as we all know. But let me emphasize that this ESG transition is not a burden, but more of a business opportunity. Global investors, as I said before, are relocating trillions of dollars towards sustainable assets, and consumers are demanding transparency and ethical sourcing. Sustainable supply chains are also being restructured around carbon footprints. And so Nigerian SMEs that position themselves early by adopting sustainable reporting, efficient resource use, and gender inclusion, as well as responsible governance, will be the preferred partners for global trade and finance. And as such, the Bank of Industry's leadership through frameworks such as their SFF and all the other frameworks that they hope to launch in the future, as well as the NCCC's regulatory coordination, together create a powerful ecosystem, one that links policy, finance, and practice to ensure no SME is left behind in the sustainability transition. Our shared goal is clear: to make sustainability a competitive advantage for Nigerian enterprises, not just a compliance requirement. It's very key we continue to build bridges between the regulators, financiers, and businesses so that ESG becomes not just a corporate checklist, but a national development strategy. As we look ahead, the message is simple. Nigeria must not only participate in the global ESG revolution, we must lead it, and on our own terms, and in line with our development priorities. The National Council on Climate Change stands ready to work with the Bank of Industry and all stakeholders to chart a sustainable growth path for our SMEs, one that creates jobs, protects our environment, and secures our future. Together, we can ensure that thriving in a changing world is not just the theme of this conference, but the reality for every Nigerian business. Thank you.
Please, I would like to invite on stage the MD CEO to please join Ms. Tenioye on stage, as well as the two directors present. We want to have pictures, so please feel free to join us on stage. Thank you. Thank you so much. So while the other photograph or this picture has been taken, we just want to remind you once again that if you need the program, you could actually scan the QR code there on the screen. If you use a smartphone, just zoom in and get the program for today. We're getting set and ready to head straight to the panel session, and I'm sure we're all excited and eagerly anticipating to hear how we can move our businesses to adopt ESG. Thank you so much. Thank you to Ms. Majekodunmi for that wonderful speech. Ladies and gentlemen, the panel session time is here. But first of all, let's remember that just as the MDCU had said in his opening remark, he said he's looking forward to people meeting together and looking forward to creating opportunities and sustainable economy. So that simply means that all of us here are change makers by boosting the belief that we currently have to ensure that we all adopt ESG. Without further ado, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the next panel session will focus deeply on how you can do that. But let me introduce to you the moderator for this panel. Please take a listen as I will later on invite her to join me here on stage to moderate the next session.
Lele Balde. Lele Balde is a Pan-African journalist, communication strategist, and policy advocate with over a decade of experience driving financial inclusion and development across Africa. A bilingual global citizen, she has lived in 12 countries and founded a leading publication on business and entrepreneurship. A Forbes Africa 30 Under 30 honoree and IMF fellow, Lele engages global platforms like the WEF and UN to advance inclusive growth and digital transformation. Please welcome our moderator, Lele, as she comes on stage.
Ladies and gentlemen, please let's put our hands together, please. Please. I'm sure we can do better. Please, let's put our hands together for our moderator, please. Please, I just want to announce as well to all our moderators who will be coming on stage, please let's just be mindful as we climb on stage. But in the meantime, I hereby hand over the panel session to Lele.
very much, Joe, for that warm introduction. Good morning, everyone. As mentioned, my name is Lele Balde, and it's such a pleasure to be moderating this panel. This very important conversation entitled Thriving in a Changing World, ESG Pathways for Nigerian SMEs. As we all know, ESG, environmental, social, and governance, has become much more than a corporate checklist. I think for many Nigerian SMEs, it has become a strategic pathway to resilience, innovation, and global competitiveness. So today on this panel, I'm very excited because we'll be exploring how enterprises across finance, policy, agriculture, fashion, and investment are embedding ESG into their DNA. And today we are truly privileged because our panel is made up of a truly cross-sector conversation. So let's meet our panelists. I'm not sure if a video is going to play or whether I should introduce them. All right, so.
Oluyemisi Ironloye. Mrs. Oluyemisi Ironloye is the founder and CEO of Sultry International, a leading cassava processing company in Africa and the first on the continent to produce cassava-based sorbitol. With degrees from FUT Mina and the University of Ibadan and an executive training from Stafford GSB, she has over 2 decades of experience in agribusiness. Under her leadership, Sultry has empowered over 100,000 farm families and created more than 1,000 jobs. Please welcome Mrs. Oluyemisi for the panel session.
Let's put our hands together for her. Welcome to the panel. It's so great to have you here with us. Welcome. Welcome to the panel. All right, so our next panelist is
Shekarau Omar. Mr. Shekarau D. Omar is the Executive Director, MSME at the Bank of Industry, with over 30 years of experience across military, academia, banking, and telecommunications. Mr. Shekarau D. Omar is the Executive Director, MSME at the Bank of Industry, with over 30 years of experience across the military, academia, banking, and telecommunications. Since joining BOI in 2005, he has held key leadership roles, including General Manager, Large Enterprises, before his appointment as ED MSME in 2019. Please welcome Mr. Shekarau for the panel session.
All right, so Mr. Shekarau is being ably represented by Dr. Kings Jack, who is a divisional head, MSME Southwest at the Bank of Industry. Welcome to the panel. It's a pleasure to have you with us. Our next panelist is
Adesowa Okumbo Rhodes. Mrs. Adesowa Okumbo Rhodes is the founder and CEO of Ariwa Capital Management, one of Africa's few women-owned and managed growth equity and gender-lens funds. With over 15 years experience in investment banking and private equity from institutions like JP Morgan, she is the only Nigerian woman to raise over $10 million in her first institutional fund. Ariwa Capital currently manages $55 million investing in healthcare, agri-processing, financial inclusion, and renewable energy. Please welcome Mrs. Adesowa for the panel session.
welcome to the panel. Adesowa, pleasure to have you with us today. Thank you for being with us today. So our next panelist is
Mrs. Bernadette Ejiofor. Mrs. Bernadette Ejiofor is a climate finance expert and UNFCCC negotiator with over 20 years of experience spanning banking, oil and gas, and environmental management. She holds degrees from the University of Benin and Nasarawa State University and is a certified expert on financing NDCs from Frankfurt Business School. Currently the Green Climate Fund Desk Officer at the National Council of Climate Change, NCCC, she was part of the pioneer team behind Nigeria's sovereign green bonds. Please welcome Mrs. Bernadette for the panel session.
Welcome, Bernadette. It's a pleasure to have you with us. And that concludes our panelists. We were supposed to also be joined by Banke Kuku, but I think that she is unavailable. So let's put our hands together for this wonderful
Dr.
panel.
Olu Ogunfowora. Dr. Olu Ogunfowora is an ESG and impact measurement expert with over 25 years of global experience spanning Accenture, EY, FBN Holdings, MTN, and Schlumberger. He is the founder and managing director of Idenis Investment Services, an advisory firm mobilizing catalytic capital for purpose-driven enterprises. Dr. Olu holds a PhD in impact investing from the University of Manchester and an executive education from Oxford University. Please welcome Dr. Olu for the panel session.
Let's put our hands together for Dr. Olu, our final panelist for today. Welcome. All right, as I mentioned earlier, Banke Kuku was supposed to be joining us, and she is unavailable today. So welcome to my panelists. I'm very, very excited to be having this conversation with you all, especially as this is the first of its kind conference from the Bank of Industry, which is quite inspiring because it shows that ESG is really being put at the center of enterprise and business. So my first question is for you, Mrs. Oluyemisi Iranroye, who's the founder and CEO of Sultry International Company Limited. So you've been able to turn cassava into a global business story. What inspired you to embed sustainability into your operations so early? And what tangible benefits, financial, reputational, or social, have you seen so far?
Thank you very much. Congratulations to Bank of Industry for this maiden edition of this conference. And thank you. That question it's very important. When Sultry was being bettered, it was actually bettered out of empathy because there was a farmer who brought his cassava to my then workplace, and it was rejected because he has traveled because the cassava was bad. And the farmer said he has traveled about 200 kilometers, 5 days on the road, everything got bad. And I had to make a case for the farmer to get a loan from the office, and he paid gradually. But then that day I had a touch in me. I was wondering why this factory should be here. This factory has no business being here. This factory should actually be close to this old man. And that was how the dream of having Sultry came to be. And so early in the life of the vision, I wanted an inclusive business model. And that's where, even though ESG wasn't very loud then, I had it in me that I wanted a business that was going to benefit farmers. So we started the Outgrowers program. But as we continue, 3 years down the line, even though we had given the farmers improved variety, I saw that farmers' yield was dropping year in, year out. So I knew we had to do something. Even though they were getting fertilizers, the NPKs of this world only give them a boost in just 2 or 3 years. After that, it starts to drop. So I started to think, what do we do? This business has to be here the next 100 years. And farmers don't have land to shift. And we started using our peels, the cassava peels from the factory, we started giving it to farmers. And that was how we started our own ESG clever somehow. Then we now eventually went on to start giving them organic neem seed. We started blending our peels with the neem seed powder to provide the organic structure. So we saw that farmers' yield started to climb. And then we eventually now went on to start to add soya as mixed cropping. And all of this is to be able to provide sustainable environmental structure, that's the soil texture, for the farmers for sustainability. So we saw that this was good, and then we started thinking, what else can we do? How else can we position this business for the future so that we can continue to produce sustainably in a cheap way and be able to compete globally? So it's the drive to compete globally that started driving us to start thinking of power. When we started the business, because the factory is in the middle of nowhere, no power, no water, no road, it was nothing other than that there was land and the farmers were there, primitive. So we started with generator. So we bought a gen, and of course all our profits was going to diesel. So by the second year, we took a loan from Union Bank, and then we constructed our own power station over about 50 kilometers from us to bring power to where our factory was. We used 5 years to pay that. And then you still use almost all the profit to pay either PACN, that is epileptic, or the diesel. You are neither here nor there. So we told ourselves, no, we have to generate our own power. If we are ever going to make profit in this business, we have to find a way to generate our own power. So the dream to have our power came from sustainability. How will we survive and be able to compete globally, especially with the dreams that the company had? Today, we've been able to generate about 1.6 megawatt of our own power from the sun. And the factory runs seamlessly with a combined solar panel, and then we use the batteries in the night and blend it with the epileptic government power, which now provides just a little bit of additional supply to the grid in the night. And this is how we have been able to stay overboard to where we are today.
Fantastic. It sounds like ESG has always been embedded in your business, from the early days. So it's my pleasure to welcome our final panelist to complete this panel. Banke Kuku is an award-winning textile and fashion designer, renowned for luxurious prints that merge African heritage with global style. Her brand has dressed icons such as Michelle Obama and appeared in Selfridges and Ukes. Through her initiative, Prints for Purpose, she connects fashion to reforestation and sustainability action across Nigeria. Let's put our hands together for Banke Kuku. Thank you for being with us. All right, so thank you so very much for answering that question. I think it leads me perfectly into the next question that I have, which is for the Bank of Industry, Dr. Jack. So, hearing Yemisi's experience from the field, how is the Bank of Industry helping SMEs like hers embed ESG into their business models?
Thank you very much for the question. Bank of Industry, basically I would say that ours is the part of implementation. And ESG has been embedded in our structure. And in our engagement with customers, we have to see the way and manner they are able to translate that to their operations. So I'll be very practical here. You meet a customer. There was a customer in Abuja. He has this problem of cost overrun. For that reason, he's unable to meet his demand to the bank. We discussed with him, because of the nature of his operation, he has to run diesel 24/7. He's in ISO printing. So what we agreed with him was to fund him again for him to have a solar farm. So he got a solar farm, because Abuja has good sun throughout a day period. So we funded him for the solar, and what he did was simple. During the day, he operates fully on solar, and during the night, because it does 24 hours operations, during the night he operates on diesel. And that was the magic of that business. He was able to break even immediately and also meet his obligation to the bank immediately. The other story is, first is that when he tell customers about ESG is as if these are under requirement again that will make me not to have a loan from Bank of Industry. But I think the onus is on us at all times to be able to break ESG down to the customer. So for instance, you have a customer that has to run generator 24/7, even at night. You also have a customer that operates in a remote environment, and for that reason has to employ the services of security firms through the night. Now, with adapting his operations to solar, what you've done to him is that classically, in the night, he can operate with solar power and thereby reducing his cost. So we bring into them to understand that ESG automatically reduces their cost of operation. And one, it also improves their way and manner they do business. You have a customer that came to us for about 200 million naira for working capital. Going through that customer's books, we realized that the customer has a consistent cash balance, net cash balance of over 500 million in his current account. What that means is that that customer has no business coming to the bank for 200 million naira loan. Straightforward. But the challenge here is that because of the very fact that he operates as a sole proprietor, he is the accountant of the firm, he is the MD of the firm, he does not have a good understanding of his business activities. So going through his book, we spoke to him and told him that, look, if you have obviously a cash balance of 500 million, it means that every point in time in your account, there is 500 million for you to use for financing you. And that also changed his way and manner he operated his business immediately. What happened was that he had to employ an accountant immediately. He did a full audit of his books and realized that the people that he was giving discount to, we are actually debtors to him. And they are not able to meet his obligations. So we also try to, as much as possible, in our business advisory services to the customer, embed advisories that will improve his governance, the way and manner he engages with his staff, and also the way and manner you operate efficiently to meet his optimal operations. Because at the end of the day, what you want to do as a banker is to ensure that your customer operates in a way and manner that is efficient enough to be able to meet his obligation to the bank and also to himself. And truly, ESG is a pathway for sustainability when it comes to business operations. Thanks.
Thank you very much for that, Dr. Jack. So I'd love to move over to the investor perspective and speak to you, Adesua. How does ESG performance influence your assessment of a company's long-term value?
Thank you, and thank you to the Bank of Industry for having me here, and congratulations on this inaugural conference. So for us at Aroa Capital, we're typically investing in businesses, small and rapidly growing businesses here in Nigeria that are, have already established their business models and are typically looking for anywhere between $1 to $3 million of growth capital. So they're always at an inflection point of their growth where they already have their operations for a minimum of 2 to 5 years. But we see that a lot of these businesses are, they require a lot of support and capacity building in implementing some of the ESG frameworks that, we would be used to. So how do they think about governance? A lot of them may not have established a board of directors where we would have to, help them think about constituting a board, help them think about bringing independence to that board. We invest in a lot of founder-led companies, and the MD is the chairman of the board at the same time. So bringing that independence is also very important. So governance is one that, as we are bringing institutional capital to these businesses, we have to improve the governance of these operations. So governance is one that we are very, very actively helping these smaller businesses to implement. Another thing that is a big focus for us is we're inclusive investors. So we're investing specifically only in companies that exhibit gender diversity. So businesses that are, the businesses that we invest in are either female-led businesses, either businesses that have a huge proportion of senior management as women, or businesses that are providing essential goods and services to improve women's lives, or businesses that have a significant portion of their value chain as women. So we want to identify businesses that are already taking the S in ESG very seriously. How are they making sure they have gender diversity within their workforce? How are they making sure they have gender diversity in their management team? I must commend BOI for this very gender-balanced panel. It's great to see that. But yes, inclusive employment is very important for us, and making sure that the S in the ESG is also taken very seriously. You know, how do they think about staff welfare? How do they think about their hiring practices, their retention practices? They typically don't have this when we invest, but you know, there are very quick wins that you can establish through just the formalization of policies. So that's something that we also help them with. And then on the E, you know, we want to invest in businesses that are not doing harm to our planet. So how are they thinking about their energy usage? How are they thinking about their carbon offsets, carbon dioxide offsets and avoidance? We have a business in our portfolio, Coolbox, that is a provider of solar-enabled refrigerators. 1,000 tons of carbon dioxide is avoided every year just from their operations. But helping them think through how to monitor that and also how to communicate that is something that we're very actively involved in. So I'm sure we'll go into more of that in the discussion, but there are very quick wins that a lot of businesses in Nigeria are already doing that is improving their ESG prospects. And it's down to us as investors to help them communicate that and to help them articulate that, because most of the capital available today is looking for businesses that are sustainable and building for that resilience. So it's really important to be able to articulate those wins, whether it's what you're doing with energy usage, like the MD of Sultry mentioned. What are you doing in terms of inclusive hiring? What are you doing in terms of your governance structures? We don't expect these businesses to have 10 subcommittees, but think about how you have independence and think about how you have, that accountability within your structure. So these are some of the things that we do and we screen for.
Thank you so much, Adesua. And I'm sure that we have quite a few SMEs in the audience. So I wanted to just ask you a follow-up question, actually. What are some of the ESG gaps that you commonly see when SMEs approach you for funding?
Yeah, so we see quite a few. Governance is one. So making sure that there is a board that is established, making sure that these founder manager and owner manager businesses have accountability in who they report to. A big area of our focus is also, like Mr. Jack said, strengthening the finance function of these businesses. Sometimes there is no CFO in place. Sometimes there's no accounting ERP or system in place that helps you to monitor cash flows. So helping to strengthen the internal, checks and balances is something that we typically see as a weakness. And then just, formalizing that inclusive hiring process. So how are they thinking about ensuring there's gender diversity from the boardroom to the factory floor? We're very, very intentional on that. If businesses have, come into our portfolio and are tracking at a low percentage, we put in place ESG and gender action plans to enable them to meet those targets. So we always say to SMEs, you're not gonna, we don't expect you to be perfect when you come to us, but we want you to be proactive already in how you're thinking about your ESG frameworks. So we don't expect you to have everything in place on day one, but we want to see a willingness to institutionalize. We want to see a willingness from you to take these things seriously, because we've seen time and time and again, when these SMEs take sustainability seriously, it actually leads to better profitability and it leads to better resilience. And investors are looking for this. And it's very, very hard to raise capital as an African SME today if you are not taking sustainability seriously. So we do screen for it. We do see these gaps, but we want to see the willingness of SMEs to institutionalize and be ready to integrate these ESG frameworks.
Thank you for that. So Bernadette, as the Chief Scientific Officer at the National Council on Climate Change, translating policy into practice, I'm sure, is never easy. How does Nigeria's Climate Change Act create real expectations for SMEs, and what support systems exist to help them transition toward low-carbon operations?
Thank you. Thank you for the question. I want to congratulate the MD for this inaugural session, and also to double congratulate him for acquiring the NIE status with the Adaptation Fund. I was all through the process with the Ministry of Environment when it started. So as you have said, the Act, the Climate Change Act of 2021 birthed the NCCC, that's the National Council on Climate Change. And this act enables the NCCC to coordinate and collate matters on climate change, emission reduction, helping organizations to transform towards a low carbon economy. One of the ways that we feel, or that the Act is helping SMEs is, first of all, we believe that SMEs that have about 50 persons, 50 employees, ought to have a designated officer managing their climate change portfolio, taking care of inventories, emission reductions, clean technologies, and all that. So there should be a designated officer in SMEs managing your climate portfolio. It doesn't have to be an office, it could be a unit, but there should be something, you should be intentional about having emission reduction. Another way that the Climate Change Act would help is in emission reduction targets. So having a unit set aside to collate all that information, I believe they should also be taking note of all the emission reduction efforts of the organization. And this is geared towards eventually doing a carbon trading, which can also feed into the organization and help them generate income. Another way which the Climate Change Act can translate for SMEs into actionable expectations is by indulging in energy efficiency practices. And I'm happy, as the people on the panel have said, that a lot of SMEs are embracing energy efficiency instruments and practices by engaging in solar, using solar for their energy generation and all that. And then it's not just saving the environment, even our health, we benefit from it by going into such practices. The Climate Change Act has 4 main pillars, as our DG said when she gave her keynote address. One of the pillars is to help SMEs, help stakeholders have access to climate finance. This can be either locally or internationally, just as DG has said. Locally can be through green bonds, can be through grants, which a lot of government organizations are into. Internationally, the National Council on Climate Change is the focal point for so many global funds like the Green Climate Fund, the Adaptation Fund, and the rest of that. So we can help SMEs to access finance. SMEs should, by indulging and involving and engaging in clean technologies, setting emission reduction targets, by having a dedicated unit to take care of climate change issues. Also, just as the DG has said, not just the Act, the recently submitted NDC 3.0 really talks a lot about private sector involvement. Mm-hmm. So we need private sector, we need everybody. And then the Act, again, has Mr. President as a head, and then private sector and relevant stakeholders. So we should synergize to make sure that SMEs are going the low carbon pathway. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, definitely. Synergy and collaboration are definitely key factors to that. All right, so Dr. Olu, from your extensive experience across many continents, what are the main factors driving ESG adoption among Nigerian SMEs today?
Hello? Okay, thank you very much. I think firstly, I must commend Dr. Olashupo for actually prioritizing ESG as part of the mandate of the Bank of Industry alongside the senior management team and the board. I've had interactions before now with Bank of Industry, and one of the things that I just want to reiterate before I talked about what is driving ESG right now. ESG as a concept is actually not new. And from a business perspective, there's always been a focus on making profit and doing good. People tend to believe that business is set up for profit maximization. However, if you look at the role of a business in society, actually includes businesses contributing positively to society. So we started with CSR because you make money and you want to do good as afterthought, right? But over the years, because of the issues, global challenges that we've seen, there has now been a move to the fact that as a business, you can make money and do good at the same time. That means it's not, they are not mutually exclusive. It is something that you integrate in your business model. So this is background in terms of why are we now prioritizing ESG right now, rather for us to have adopted as part of our business model. A requirement to access funding before now from BOI is to submit your financial statement and also to prove what you call environmental and social impact assessment of that project. The ESI would have taken into in consideration the impact of the business on the environmental part as well as the social part. So, in essence, we see a move in terms of the interest right now, in terms of compliance, hello? So in terms of funding, and also there is a part of sustainability that has to do with climate. I like the way Adeso actually broke it down, because for us in this part of the world, right, we need to look at the S and the G along the E as well. We tend to talk about environmental right now because there's a lot of funding for climate-related projects. However, if you look at the metrics, under the social as part of the ESG, social metrics, what we normally have in workplace, health, safety of the workers, in terms of decent work environment, gender, equity pay, these are part of the metrics that investors look for in the S. And of course, the G are one of the key things if you want to even learn from commercial bank or maybe developmental financial institution as a business or as an SME, you have to have the right governance in place, which means what is the succession planning of your business? And most of the time for we tend to want to have 100% of a ₦1 million business rather than to say we want to have 10% of a ₦1 billion enterprise. So what I'm saying really is this. There are times that as an SME, you need to look for synergy. You need to look for collaboration. How do you collaborate with other businesses so as to improve your governance? There is what you call in financial services, you want to reduce key man risks, which means that you are you are the owner, you are the chief financial officer, you are all in law to the business. Decisions about business cannot be taken without you, and that's why governance is very important. And I think lastly, before we go deep into the discussion, really in terms of also what is driving the ESG, is also around sustainability. Because at the end of the day, you need to operate your business not just sustainable financially, also in terms of the people and also in terms of the planet. And one of the things that is happening right now is that for SMEs, you have to key into the supply chain of large enterprises. And for large enterprises, what they look out for doing business with you is that you align with their own standards. So that means you want to be a supplier to large enterprises, it is imperative that you also explore how to key into the ESG standard of the business, of the large enterprises. And of course, the other part really is your stakeholders. You need to understand your stakeholders, the interests of your stakeholders, and a lot of stakeholders are getting aware of why it is important to prioritize ESG. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Dr. Olu. So Banke Kuku, I'd love to come over to you. You've built a global luxury brand that celebrates African identity and sustainability. I'd like to know what sparked your decision to make ESG a central part of your creative process.
Hi, everyone, and thank you so much for having me. It's really great to be here. And congratulations to BOI on this fantastic conference. So my brand has always been inspired by nature. I tell stories about nature in Nigeria through my prints and my silhouettes. And when I first started my brand, it was just about telling stories. When I was also starting my brand, I was very intentional about creating a community-based brand. So not just within my customers, but also within my business, because I found that employing staff, they stay longer when they feel like they're part of a community, and making sure their lives are good. And maybe it was a little bit selfish, but I just wanted them to be at peace, so when they come to work, they're just focused on my work. So I have a community within my business, and I have a community outside my business, which I call the Kuku Tribe. And I found that this community has really helped tell my story throughout, like, around the world. So I started off with just telling nature stories, and my business grew. I felt like just telling stories wasn't enough. I needed to put action behind it. So with my last collection, which was called Oceans, we spoke about the environment around the oceans in Nigeria, and what it used to look like then and what it looks like now, and the steps we need to take to kind of save the marine life for generations to come. So we did active things, like my team went out to beaches and we cleaned beaches, and we continued this active action, and it has continued with the rest of the collections succeeding that. So for example, my new collection is called Savannah, and we made a commitment to plant 10,000 trees around Nigeria, and we've done 1,000 so far, and by next year we'll complete planting the 9,000, and we're partnering with different communities again. Again, I emphasize community because I wanted my own, not just my community within my business, but my customers to also get involved in this planting process. So it also educates them on the importance of trees and the importance of not just cutting down trees and destroying our planet. So yeah, it's been really interesting to me, and I found that getting my community involved in this tree planting really helped them even understand more about my business. And it's not just about fashion, it's about our environment, it's about our community. And if we don't have a healthy community or a healthy environment, there's actually no business. I have no business. So we've continued that. We've continued our storytelling. We've continued educating our customers, and also my staff as well. I can see them now, like when they come into the building, it's not just, I don't just see wrappers anywhere. People are picking things up, people are putting things in the bin. So it's really, and it shows that they respect the business more. They respect the business, they respect the environment around the business, they respect themselves a lot more. It completely changes their mindset, and they just become a lot more dedicated to what they do, and they respect what they do a lot more, and they take more time, they're more detailed. I see it's just a complete change when you get them when you just get them to respect what is around them. And it's not just about pretty clothes or pretty accessories, it's about creating a culture. So that was why, for me, I didn't even necessarily think about it as, oh, I have to implement ESGs. It just came naturally, and as the brand has grown, I've seen it become ESGs, and I've seen, then now we have a CSR department, and now, then we try and raise funds to plant more trees, and we partner with other businesses, but it's something that kind of evolved with my business.
Very nice. Thank you very much, Banke. It's a beautiful story, and I think the excitement with which you talk about your brand is definitely palpable. So we only have about 18 minutes left for this panel. I think I was tasked with the task of having a 6-person panel, which I truly appreciate. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put one question for 2 people. And essentially, I'm going to start with Adesua and Dr. Jack. Since you both allocate capital, one through equity and one through debt, how can investors and lenders align on shared ESG criteria so that businesses are not pulled into different directions? So I'm going to ask both of you the same question, and if you could answer in a minute or less, that would be great. I'll start with you, Adesua.
Sure. That's very easy. I'm a private equity fund. We co-invest with a lot of other private equity funds, and to ensure that we don't put a burden on the SMEs that we invest in, we align as investors on what the impact reporting template should be for these businesses on a quarterly and an annual basis. So for us, we're very interested in gender diversity within the management team, within the board, within the workforce, within the value chain. These are metrics that we can align with other investors very, very easily on. What are the jobs that you're creating on an annual basis for men, for women? What is the quality of the jobs that you're creating? Are they skilled? Are they unskilled? What are the tons of CO2 emissions you're avoiding on an annual basis? Mm-hmm. What policies have you put in place for your employees in terms of promotion, retention? So they're quite standard ESG frameworks that are available from whether DFI investors or foundations that are the investors in our funds, where we can align on these impact reporting templates so that SMEs don't feel that extra burden of having to report on the progress of their ESG implementation differently to each stakeholder. Mm-hmm. So for us, we've aligned with other co-investors in our companies on the important things we want to see on job creation, job quality, gender diversity, as well as environmental impact as well.
Thank you so much, Adesua. What about you, Dr. Jack?
Okay, thank you very much for the question. Basically, I would say that the ESG framework aligns totally with the framework for a viable business that any bank or a financier will want to look into. Because it speaks to the governance structure of the business. It speaks to the social impact of the business, which talks about the day-to-day running of your organization, with your staffing and all of that. It also speaks to the environmental part of this business, which speaks to sustainability. Your ability to do business today and also do it tomorrow. So what we do as a bank, we also have an ESG framework that we benchmark each of our funding to. And once you are able to go through that framework satisfactorily, you are funded. So what are the basic conditions we are looking at? Apart from the financials and all of that, you look at the impact it will create, the inclusiveness when it comes to gender. You look at how their activities basically influence or impact the environment. You look at how their governance will be able to support the kind of business they're currently operating and all of that. So I will conclude by saying that the ESG framework, if well implemented or appraised against a business and a business stops on it, that business is most likely going to be a very viable business. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that, Dr. Jack. All right, so I'd like to come to Banke Kuku and Dr. Olu. Banke, your work makes sustainability quite aspirational, I would say. Do you have any advice for businesses that are looking to do the same thing that you've done on a global scale? And Dr. Olu, how can creative industries like Banke Kuku Textiles help normalize ESG value amongst customers and mainstream business culture? So Banke, why don't you start? Can you swap mics with,
Hi, thank you. So my advice to smaller brands that are looking to be more sustainable is there's so many things you have to think of when you're starting your business. So I would say just take it slow. Always have it in the, you don't have to start with something so huge. It can just be something small like, I really want to minimize my waste. Maybe with my, with wasting less fabrics, and try and think what you can do with your offcuts, or if you have lots of offcuts, maybe donating them to another brand that can use them for something else. So just start small with things that are not going to you're just gonna feel overwhelmed, and eventually you just don't do it. So once you start, you find that it just becomes addictive and you just want to do more and more and more. But my advice is just don't let it overwhelm you, and also try and make it as part of your story. So when it's part of your story, it just becomes effortless. You don't have to think, oh, I have to do, it's part of your business. So you'll carry it along. And yeah, so just take baby steps. That's my advice.
Thank you so much, Banke. And Dr. Olu?
Yeah, thank you very much. It's interesting that you linked the question in terms of what she does, which is in two sectors. One is the clothing, textile, and garment, and combined with creative sector. For an SME, if you are looking in that part of the business, investors like Desua and Dr. Jack BOI want to look at how you deal with issues of stakeholders engagement within your value chain. One of the things you need to realize in cotton, textile, and garment really is that you need to find out that where you source your materials for, they are not using child labor. And also it's important that the women that work really in getting the product out on a social part, they are well compensated. Because at the end of the day, if you look at a country like Bangladesh, one of the things they have been able to, whether in terms of being a leader in that sector, because they are to now look at from the input, how do we get this input out? How do we get the cotton production, which is the farming part of the business, really in terms of what farming practices, and then you can look at the Eve part of it, really whether in terms of water usage. I'll link this to the issues happening in the northern part of the country if I have a bit of time, because I looked at that, the SDGs. If you want to do ESG, just focus on the SDGs, because it can tell you what goal or objectives and how to identify specific metrics that you want to measure, track, and report. It talks about industry, innovation, and infrastructure for people in manufacturing. And also it talks about climate action, right? So that means that for a banker, I'm sure you're also talking to your suppliers, really, to make sure that they align, because an investor will say, okay, if you have this list of suppliers, they will just want to check out on those suppliers. whether they are also maintaining the same standard as you are having, and it's quite important. So the creative part of the business, I want to focus that in terms of youth. We talked about a lot of youth unemployment, social issues, especially not just in the north, also in the south. We've got a pool of unemployed youths, not just in Nigeria, but across the African continent. I remember when I was doing advisory for the Tony Elumelu Foundation, when they called the concept of Afrocapitalism, trying to fund businesses operated by the youth. You realize that at the end of the day, you might say your focus is job creation, but if you also I'm talking to BOI right now, I think you are doing this already, support innovation and enterprise among youth so that they can have a structured creative sector. These days you talked about if there is an event in Nigeria, the entire event management scheme, there is a creative design, there is an Ashwebi, they will do different kind of design. But these small self-employed individuals, if well structured in such a way, they can even be greater employers of labor. I mean, we wear designer items like a Gucci, Louis Vuitton. These guys are like designers, creativity, but they are supported by that environment. So in essence, really, is that what I'm saying really is that all of what we are trying to achieve under ESG with this SDG as our objective, as our framework, we can move not just from ESG to intentionality as an impactful business. That is, your business model is designed in such a way that you want to intentionally create positive social and environmental impact alongside financial return.
Yes, so essentially you're describing impact investing, which is a very common concept in ESG. So quickly, I'd love to ask, Bernadette, you mentioned climate finance incentives. So I'm wondering, between yourself and Yemisi, if you could discuss how those funding pathways, if they became easier to access, how might it change the growth strategy at Psaltry International Company Limited?
Thank you very much. So, yes, I did say we can source funds locally or internationally. Well, for the green bonds of the federal government, it's sovereign in nature. So that an SME would have to partner with an MDA, Ministry, Department, or agency to benefit from the green bonds of the federal government, so that the MDA would have to put it in their national budget. But then one beautiful thing about the green bond of the federal government is that after the second issuance of 15 billion, private sector, a lot of private sector have also gone into green bond issuance. So imagine if all the SMEs were to access green bonds for, is it planting trees? Is it doing energy efficiency? Is it for clean technologies and all that? It requires a whole of society and a whole of environment approach. I mean, a whole of a society and a whole of everybody's approach into it. So in accessing, that's for the local one. For the international funds, the global funds like the Green Climate Fund, they have something called the Private Sector Facility. And then for anybody in Nigeria, be you SME or MDA that wants to access the Green Climate Fund, the NCCC, the designated authority, can help with technical assistance in project development. We can help with capacity building. And then when you finish the proposal, the NCCC would have to issue what's called a no objection letter, and then would follow up and ensure that you get it. Also, there's also policy engagement. So if there government policies that are not encouraging the SMEs to thrive, we can have those things worked on and then maybe create frameworks that will help SMEs thrive. But everybody, the climate change phenomena, it's not something that is left for only the government to fight. Everybody needs, it's an all hands on deck issue that everybody needs to take seriously, and then we are here to support you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right. Would you like to add anything to that, Yemisi? Yes, please, go ahead.
Thank you very much. I believe that if SMEs are able to imbibe the ESG rules, it's going to help them facilitate easier access to funding. Because for us as Sultry, I would say that it became much easier for us to access funding when we are able to present all the things we are doing in the SSG, because we became more bankable. And also because we are able to show that the company is going, is planned for the future. So it's easier for a financier to see long-term what they are doing. So I believe that it's something that every SME should be able to look at and imbibe. It's win-win.
Win-win, I love that. All right, let's give it up for our panelists. Thank you so very much for that very informative panel session. I wanted to see if we have one question in the audience. Do we have any questions for our panelists? We have one at the back. We have a few here on the right-hand side of the stage. We unfortunately only have time for one question, 2 questions. So can someone go around with the mic? Or should I do that? Ojo, will you do that? Okay.
All right, thank you. Good morning, everyone. So I just really want to ask around data and evidence. Permit me to just read my question because I needed to jot it down. So the conversation today was largely on the business case for ESG and sustainability compliance, but then mostly around access to finance. But I really think that is just one of the incentives for businesses. Let's talk about profit, for example, for SMEs. There are a lot of data that shows ESG, sustainability, compliance, results in maybe more profit for businesses. But my concern is many of these data are coming from the global north. PwC released a data, I think, recently that shows maybe 60% of consumers are more willing to purchase from ESG compliant brand. But the truth is, these data do not really reflect the reality of businesses in the global south because there is a huge data gap. So my question is, what is the BOI and even the NCC doing to really close this data gap? Because an SME in Nigeria is thinking, if you're asking me to be compliant, access to finance as much as is there, that shouldn't be my only incentive. How does this result to profit? How does this reduce cost for me? There is serious data gap that tells the story in the global south. So we can't keep talking about data from the global north because there's even purchasing power is low. So that's my question. How do we close this data gap and really develop data that reflect the reality of the global south? Thank you.
Thank you so much for your question. I think we'll take one more question and then we'll answer. I recognize that we have a woman right here on the right-hand side in the black, yeah. So we'll take that question and then if everybody could note their answers for the first question.
Where, please? Where?
Yeah, the one with her hand up.
Hi, thank you so much. And good morning to the House. My name is Lola Diagbadi and I work at the Development Bank of Nigeria. I think there's a huge opportunity for us to collaborate since we're talking SDGs. They're similar to what the gentleman before me said. There is a lack of data, but now I'm referring to SMEs being able to go to some central portal that teaches them, on one hand, what being sustainability compliant is, what that looks like for their businesses, but also being able to translate data into what it means to us at a local level. And so this is not a question, it's a comment to say there is a huge opportunity. I work at a DFI, this is a DFI, to collaborate. We have the ANFI Association of National DFIs. I also think the NCCC can contribute to this body of work, us coming together and figuring out what ESG looks like for local MSMEs, whether it's with the translation of carbon-related data or teaching them how to be more environmentally friendly across the different sectors that they operate in. And so I'm just putting this submission here in the House this morning. It's something that I will also follow up with further conversations at the ANFI level as well, because I think that's important. We're all working in silos, and I think if we look to the near future, the next 5-10 years, we don't want to still be having this level of conversations. We need to take it up, and that can only happen through collaboration. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that comment, Nolade. I think we should, you want to go ahead and respond? You want to answer the first question?
Do we have time to answer it?
Yes, we do.
Yeah. So it's a very valid point, and thank you for bringing that up. At Aroa Capital, we're actually very, very vocal about showing that intersectionality between improved governance, improved diversity within the company's value chain, and profitability. So to give you some figures, since we invested, we now have 14 companies in our portfolio. Since we've invested in these companies and implemented ESG frameworks, they've seen their revenues grow by about 26 times. In addition, when we've had larger funds invest in our businesses, larger strategics invest in our businesses, we've seen valuation uplifts of an average of 7 times. So we are very, very intentional to showcase that if you take these ESG frameworks seriously, if you implement improved governance, if you implement increased gender diversity within your management team, within your supply chain, within your workforce, within your board, it can actually add notches to your valuation when you're discussing your next round of investment with larger investors. It gives you an ESG premium that others may not have. But I completely agree with your point. More funds, more providers need to be more vocal about showing that connection, because until the founder is convinced that it's actually going to add to the bottom line, he's not going to take it seriously, or she's not going to take it seriously. So those connections will continue to be made by us and others in the ecosystem.
Thank you very much.
A point very briefly, really. Thank you for bringing that question about data up, really. By way of background, my doctoral research was actually focused on impact investing and measurement. And one of the key findings then was data is an issue. So what can be done is technology. I'm actually with some stakeholders within the impact investing ecosystem. We're building a technology platform that will gather impact data from multiple sources that DFIs, even private equity fund managers and organizations like BOI, the same way you've got Bloomberg for financial data, in which you can pull up any company, you analyze their financial data over 10, 15 years and do a projection. So this platform, right, can also gather impact data. It doesn't matter whether it's global north, global south, and that's when I said at the beginning, really, is that the focus in the global north seems to be on the E of the ESG, whereas for us in the global south, we need to be looking at the metrics of the S in the ESG. So what this technology platform would do would utilize AI, bring in multiple data from multiple sources. Then a BOI, if you've got a business plan, a business to fund, all you just need to do really is that you encourage all the MSMEs to get on that technology platform so you can readily see their financial data and analyze. You can also readily analyze their impact data. Then it's a lot easier for even investors to assess the kind of businesses they want to form. So that's the power of technology, and I think technology is actually of a strategic imperative to actualizing ESG for Nigerian SMEs.
Thank you very much for those remarks. Okay, you have something to say before we close?
Okay, thank you for your question also. We also agree with you totally that there is lack of data when it comes to the consumption pattern, generally, macroly, of businesses. However, what we are doing in the Bank of Industry currently is that we have an impact reporting template that take into cognizance all of these patterns of our customers. So for instance, if you take a look at our funding has been fully adapted to ESG. So for you to be able to secure funding from BOI, it must be totally ESG compliant or on your way to ESG compliance. And that alone over the years, so the past 2 years, we've seen transformation in the area of our non-performing loans. Today, we've moved down for up to 4% at micro level, which is a significant improvement. And it shows, of course, acceptability of the products of our customers by the market when it comes to localization of the data you're talking about. Thanks.
Thank you very much. All right, let's put our hands together for this wonderful panel. It truly was an inspiring session, from policy to practice, finance to fashion. We've seen how ESG is reshaping the future of businesses in Nigeria. So to Dr. Olu, Dr. Jack, Adesua, Bernadette, Oluyemisi, and Banke, thank you very much for being part of this panel. Thank you so much to our audience for listening. If we could all stand so we could take a picture, and if I could ask the MD CEO to kindly join us on stage. Thank you.
So smooth, trying to keep.
Would also like the directors to please join them on stage, please. Please. Please, the directors, kindly join them on stage as well. Thank you very much. Please, let's not forget to be mindful of our steps as we're walking down the stairs. Thank you so much. Please put your hands together one more time for the panelists. Thank you. Yes, you can. Gently, please. Well done. Thank you. Gently, please. Well done. Please, let's put our hands together one more time for the panelists. Thank you. Please put your hands together, please. Please. We're almost there, but we're not done yet. Just a few more minutes to go. For those who have downloaded the program, I'm sure you know where we're going to next. But as part of the SDG goals, Sustainable Development Goals, who can highlight what number 3 of the Sustainable Development Goals is? Number 3. Number 3. SDG goals number 3. I can see a hand there. So I will need the microphone to go to the hand. Please put your hand up so we can see you. Please. Okay. What did you say? Healthcare. And you're correct. Healthcare and, of course, well-being. And as one who has taken it upon myself, and I'm sure you've also done that or you're contemplating to do so, it's very important that we take care of our health. So possibly hit the gym, exercise, and so on and so forth. I looked at the time and I've seen that we've been sitting for close to about an hour, 30-something minutes. So please, let's do this together. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, to our guests, I'd like us to please stand up. Please, let's stand. Let the blood flow, please. It's advisable that you don't sit for long. Sedentary work or just sitting doesn't allow the blood to flow. Okay? You see, we care about you now. That's part of the social things that we do at Bank of Industry. All right, so please, let's do it together. Right leg, left, right. Just light, let the blood go. Don't kick the next person in front of you. Relax. Some people who are just stretching the leg are saying, the small coffee and tea I had in the morning, don't go. Don't worry. Just do that. It's very key, so the blood can actually flow. All right? And while we're doing this and we're having the conversation, don't forget the points that we've taken note of, all right? Okay, now we can stop. And we can do this next, all right? Don't kick your leg. Just go like this. Just go like this. Just go like this, all right? For those who are wearing high heels, I'm sorry. Sorry. Manager. In some parts of Nigeria, they say ndo. All right? In Yoruba, they say what? Bele. In French, they say what? What is sorry? Pardon. Correct. In where I come from, they say pe. All right, please, let's sit down. Thank you. Thank you so much. It's now time for us to go straight to the fireside chart. It's very short. It's just 6 to 7 minutes. The fireside chart will focus on very, very important aspect of ESG. Now, the theme is ESG in action. All right, we've been talking about policies, how companies can move on, but now we want to see it in action, and this is a fireside chart. It's going to be handled, no doubt, by the Executive Director, Corporate Finance and Sustainability Investment, Bank of Industry. I'm going to invite him on stage, not now. He is also going to be joined by Founder and Creative Director, MITIMETH, and I'm talking about Achenyo Idachaba-Obaro. But let's tell you more about the guest. So, take a listen.
Mrs. Achenyo Idachaba-Obaro. Mrs. Achenyo Idachaba-Obaro is the founder and CEO of MITIMETH, an award-winning social enterprise transforming invasive weeds and agricultural waste into handmade decor and lifestyle products. With over 13 years of innovation, her work has been showcased globally at events like London Future Fabrics Expo and Vienna Design Week. A multi-award winning entrepreneur and TED speaker, she's a fellow of Vital Voices, MIT Legatum, and Kate Women's Initiative. Please welcome Mrs. Achenyo for the fireside conversation.
We'd like to welcome both of them, please. The Executive Director and, of course, our speaker and guests. Please welcome on stage. Please hold on. Let's ensure that you are, all right, careful. Thank you. Please put your hands together one more time, please, as they take their seats. Please.
Okay. It's a pleasure to have you here, Achenyo. Fortuitously, you're someone I know, so this promises to be a very interesting chat. But let me just quickly do the preliminary opening. So as we continue to explore how Nigerian enterprises can embed ESG principles into their operations, we are joined by Achenyo Idachaba-Obaro. She's the founder, CEO of MITIMETH. MITIMETH's journeys captures the essence of this year's theme, demonstrating that sustainability is not just a cliche. Rather, it's an integral necessity for resilience, innovation, and inclusive growth. Through Achenyo's work, turning invasive aquatic plants into eco-friendly products, Achenyo has shown that creativity and environmental stewardship can coexist with enterprise profitability. And so today, we are urged to draw learnings from her story that embodies how SMEs can weave ESG principles into its operational fabric, not just as a standalone framework, but as a driver to community empowerment, supply chain value, and sustainable livelihoods. In this conversation, we're going to explore how Mitimet's evolution offers lessons for several MSCs represented here today, irrespective of what sector you operate in. And the key thing will be on how we can turn ESG from theory to practice and equally adopt a lot of learnings from your own experience. So let's dive right into it. The first question we'd like to ask, Mitimet was founded on a powerful intersection of environmental need and entrepreneurial vision. So at what point did you begin to intentionally embed sustainability into Mitimet's business model? And what motivated that decision?
All right, good morning, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. It's a delight to be here participating in this fireside chat, and a very big congratulations to BOI for this inaugural conference. Now, to answer your question, Rotimi, in terms of what motivated me on this journey and how I've been able to incorporate sustainability into our work at Mitimet, I'd like to start off by saying that Mitimet, actually, the work we do at Mitimet actually rests on a three-legged stool, which has to do with people, planet, and then profits. And getting the first two right, that is planet and people, drives the third aspect of our business, which is profits. I'd like to build on what the previous panel mentioned earlier about the SDGs. Now, we've been on this journey at Mitimet for about 14 years now. So it was first the MDGs, now it's the SDGs. And the work that we actually do ties into at least 6 of the SDGs, starting with the first, which has to do with reducing poverty. Then we also talk about gender equality, decent work and economic growth, climate action, life underwater, because the work that we do also is in the blue economy, and then also strategic partnerships, because we can't do this on our own. So a lot of collaboration within the entrepreneurial innovation ecosystem is very, very vital to our sustainability as well. Sustainability, I won't say we're 100% there. It didn't start on day one. Yes, we make eco-friendly products, and I came on stage with this bag for show and tell, so that you can actually see that, you know, what we're doing with Water Hyacinth is real. You can actually touch and feel it. So we're actually transforming an environmental menace into functional use. And Destiny has just brought this up so we can see it. This is a rug, a runner made from Water Hyacinth harvested from the lagoon. So we work with natural materials. And I think, you know, you would say that because we're within the green manufacturing space, that is it. We're already a sustainable company. But no, that's not just it. So the product is, but our operations also need to be sustainable, and I'm sure we'll dive deep into that. But in terms of the motivation, beyond wanting to produce a product that is sustainable, our customers also demand it, and so do the markets as well. They're requesting for responsible operational and production practices. So that has driven some of the intentional decisions that we've made over the years, and we still continue to make. And as we make these incremental changes due to these motivations and demands, both internally and externally, we have seen that there are wins, big wins, that come as a result of us actually taking these deliberate steps to incorporate sustainability into our operations.
Brilliant, brilliant. Yes. So it's people, planets, and ultimately profits.
The profits will come.
But then again, you're beginning to see that your customers are now demanding a level of sustainability,
absolutely,
which has compelled you to sort of strengthen your practices.
Exactly.
Excellent. So Mimet's products, as you've shown us, some of them are globally recognized.
Yes, so I'll place it in the center.
And so we're going to begin to promote your goods.
Yes, absolutely.
And it's interesting to see that this has emanated from water hyacinths.
Yes.
So beyond product innovation, how has Mitimet woven ESG principles into its daily operations?
Okay, fantastic. So on the environmental side, so yes, we work with natural materials which are friendly to the environment. But beyond just using natural materials which are eco-friendly, it's also looking within as to how we can minimize waste as well as minimize our carbon footprint. So within our organization, we have what we call a zero waste policy. So we look at how we can fully exploit the materials that we utilize. Yes, there are instances where we miss it and we do generate waste. But one of the things that we do when we generate the waste is we don't dispose of it. So we put the waste aside knowing that we can actually redesign around the waste. And we're in the circular economy, and the circular economy stems from design. So we look at how we can actually design the waste into the system. But most importantly, it's also looking at the root cause of what's generating that waste and addressing those root causes. So is it an off-spec material that we got from one of our communities that didn't quite measure up? So the question is, why didn't it measure up? Is it a question of a lack of skills? A lack of know-how, and then we begin to peel the layers of the onion and then address that particular gap. So if it's a lack of skills, we look at how we can better upgrade the skills of the maker community to ensure that whatever materials we're getting from them are actually on spec, so we minimize those opportunities or those instances where we actually generate waste. So apart from a waste minimization standpoint, it's also looking at clean energy. So Yemisi mentioned how, she's had to incorporate renewable energy into her operations, similar to us. So people would ask us, and this is, the customers and the markets demanding. You say, oh, you have an eco-friendly product. They say, fantastic. So tell us about your operations. And then how can you now tell? Granted, our product is, majority, it's handmade, but then we also engage in the use of small tools. So when people now start asking you questions, driving questions about your operational practices, it felt off, let me put it that way, to say that we were making an environmental friendly product and we were using fuel-powered generators. So for example, we make buttons, fashion accessories, and then to operate our small tools, we were running the generator because of electric power supply. So what did we had to be very intentional. It was expensive at the beginning, but then we had to look at how we could shift the way we were operating from fossil fuel power to clean energy. So we had to invest in getting a 5 kVA solar inverter, which we use today. And it's also forced us to look at how we actually do our operations, right? So we maximize the use of the energy we have available. Before, we might have been casual and careless because we had fuel that was running our operations. But now we're very careful about scheduling how we run our production. So clean energy is another aspect in which we are incorporating ESG into our operations.
Thank you very much. So we're beginning to see that there's a commonality that runs across many businesses. Dr. Jack, when he was up here, spoke about the business that BOI supported, and the drawback was heavy reliance on diesel. Same thing is what EMC said. EMC equally said that they had to pivot away from heavy reliance on diesel. And so we're beginning to see that for most businesses, there is a clear transition into the use of clean energy. And now waste management is also something that you've harped upon, which is the need for zero tolerance for wastages. and waste management in terms of how you then convert your outputs and equally utilize them for further use somewhere down the line, so that there's no output that just goes to waste. So zero waste management. That's very interesting, and I think that that's something other MSMEs can draw a learning on. Adopting ESG principles often involves financial, technical, and behavioral adjustments, as we have seen evidence in some of the conversations. For example, Adesua did speak about the way and her own approach, and hers was typically, there's a gender lens, and there was governance, which she helped upon. So what key challenges did Mitimet encounter, perhaps in sourcing sustainable materials, scaling responsibly, or securing financing? And how did you overcome those challenges?
All right, so I would say that, you know, challenges, you know, I just believe that those are opportunities, right? And not necessarily barriers to you actually doing business. They might slow things down, but I think they're opportunities. In terms of sourcing the material, folks might think, oh, isn't water hyacinth prevalent everywhere? You should be able to access this material free of charge as well. But that isn't necessarily the case. And I tell folks, if you think it's that easy, why don't you try it? So one thing that we've been able to do in terms of sourcing sustainably is actually build capacity within the riverine and riparian communities that have this renewable resource within their environment in abundance. And what we've done is also identify the patterns. In some places it's seasonal, in some places it's year-round. So how do you guarantee a sustainable supply chain where you have your raw materials consistently? And it's not when a customer orders, you say, sorry, your water hyacinth is off-season right now, so we can't fulfill this order. So we had to look inwards at how we could ensure, you know, a sustainable supply chain by stockpiling during the high infestation season. So working with the communities to say, okay, you have this material for X number of months. This will be the ideal time for you to harvest, dry, and then weave this material, and then warehouse it until we need to take this offtake. So that way we've minimized disruptions within the supply chain from a shortage of raw material availability. In terms of financing, and I will be visiting with Adesua in the not too distant future, most of the financing that we've been able to access has been in the form of grants. We have not actually raised capital in terms of debt, but in order for us to scale, we certainly need to look into you know, raising capital for that reason. But for the monies that we have been able to raise in the form of grants, you know, I've been very fortunate that majority or the bulk of what I was able to raise was actually through gender-lensed initiatives. You Win Women being one, which is where I met our dear MD of BOI, and also from the Cartier Women's Initiative. And there have been others as well. But those two were essentially catalysts that helped Mitimet to actually spring or leap ahead in terms of, you know, getting established. And what we've done over the years through some of these ESG principles that I've mentioned is actually reinvest what we have made within the business. So that has more or less sustained our business, but in order to grow and scale, we certainly need to look at financial institutions to support the work that we're doing. Patient capital, I must emphasize, is what we're looking for and not the traditional forms of financing.
Thank you very much. So effectively, grants is one. Yes. There are other pockets of financing. For example, even within the Bank of Industry today, we have a gender-based product to support female entrepreneurs. And, you know, I think the nuances around that product is very compelling and would actually help promote more female-owned businesses. But equally, Outside of that, there are also pockets of sustainable finance available to MSMEs out there who have, a compelling story to tell. Let's go ahead. So, what lessons can you share with entrepreneurs in sectors such as the agro-processing, the fashion space, services, or light manufacturing on how they too can apply ESG principles to their businesses? How can they start small and still make some meaningful impact? It's pretty much like you did in your own case.
In my own case. All right, excellent question there. What I would suggest, and being in the circular economy, this, rings, it really is on my radar, is collaboration. So I think collaboration is key. So if you just want to look at the environmental aspect and the minimization of waste, and I think Banker already touched on this in terms of offcuts. So if you're looking at the fashion industry, for example, that generates quite a bit of textile waste during the process of manufacturing, what other industries are out there that can take those offcuts and actually utilize them in their own manufacturing process? Of course, you can also peel the layers back to say, okay, what can you do to actually minimize the waste that is being generated? But I think by collaborating with other institutions that would have a need for some of the waste that's being generated, whether it's the fashion industry, whether it's agro-processing, whether it's light manufacturing, there are opportunities for you to actually create sustainable products as a result of collaborative partnerships within the various enterprises and within the industry as well. I'll use a very good example, at least in my case here, which has to do with, we make use of coconut shells. And we use the coconut shells to make coconut buttons. And the buttons are supposed to replace the plastic buttons, which, Rotimi, by the way, your buttons are plastic. But if we look in the audience today and I say, take a look at your buttons are probably made from plastic, right? So what is a sustainable option here? A sustainable option could be the use of coconut buttons or any other hard form of material. We also make bamboo buttons utilized from bamboo waste. Today in Nigeria, we use bamboo for scaffolding. And what we're doing is taking that waste and actually creating accessories from it. So you have a situation whereby waste from one particular sector, and we work with coconut processors. We take that, make it into products which now feed into the fashion industry. So you now have somewhat of a circular loop of sorts, but you have waste now being redesigned and recreated or upcycled that can be used in another sector. So that's one way in which I think we can look at collaborative opportunities within, both agro, light manufacturing, and then the fashion industry.
Excellent. So effectively, we're looking at collaborations, yes. But equally, there is a supply chain conversation there, where what can be an output from your end would be an input to serve another sector. So there has to be more collaborations in that respect. Brilliant. Looking ahead, how do you see sustainability shaping Mitimet's long-term competitiveness and influence, particularly in how customers, investors, and communities perceive your brand? What role do you believe forward-thinking SMEs should play in positioning Nigeria's organized private sector for inclusive and smart growth?
Okay. So let me just put it this way. Sustainability is not an option, right? I don't think you can say I'll get to it later. I think it's an imperative, and incorporating sustainability, the ESG principles into the operation of your business is actually future-proofing your enterprise, your business, and your brand. I think that is the key to longevity. If you don't, you're going to find your business irrelevant at the end of the day because the markets are demanding for it. I'll give a good example. Just recently received an order from a large construction firm here in Nigeria. And they were very specific. Clearly, their client wanted an environmentally friendly product because they came, they said, we need to understand these materials that you're using for your product. So we had to educate them on the material itself, why it was eco-friendly. Then they wanted to understand our supply chain. Who are the people that are making this product? We had to share that information. Are they being paid fair wages, et cetera, et cetera. So this was then the clincher. So after, we got the order, right? But during the process of negotiation, the client now said, well, are you going to give us a discount? And, our communication is, we're not a discount business. We're a value-based business. And this is the reason why we can't give discounts. And by the time I enumerated the reasons why, he could see into it. In fact, I made it a pure ESG play. I said, these products, if you purchase them, so this is green procurement for your business, right? And we're touching on the different facets of the ESG principles, from an environmentally friendly product to a social, addressing the S part of the ESG principles. And I said, look, you'll be able to put this, with full chest in your ESG impact report to see how you have impacted several communities, several women who have made this product that your clients, have, adorned within their office space. So in summary, it's not an option. It's the only way you can remain competitive because our investors are demanding for it. The market is also demanding for it as well. So the earlier we get started, the better. We won't have it all right on day one. It certainly wasn't the case for us. It's a process, it's a continuous improvement process, and it evolves, but we have to be very intentional about making these incremental steps, which at the end of the day would add up to very significant wins for the environment, for the social and economic aspect of it, as well as for governance.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you. In other words, this is a journey, and the landscape is changing. And so the sooner MSMEs begin to adopt ESG principles into their psyche and their lexicon, the better for them. Thank you. Well, ladies and gentlemen, through Mitimet's experience, we can see that ESG adoption is not confined to just corporations or climate-focused businesses like hers, because hers is aquatic and closer to nature. But it is also a tool for every MSME seeking resilience, innovation, and credibility in a changing world. Achenio's work reminds us that when sustainability becomes a design principle rather than an afterthought, enterprises not only survive market shocks, but also generate shared prosperity for people and the planet, as Achenio has rightly said. Ladies and gentlemen, please let's give a warm and resounding applause to Achenio for her beautiful story. In closing, I'd like to say that Mitimet's story perfectly sets the stage for the unveiling of the ESG adoption by the Nigerian's SME report. This landmark study by the Bank of Industry represents one of the most comprehensive national assignments of how MSMEs are embracing ESG principles. Recognizes this imperative, the Bank of Industry conducted a pivotal nationwide ESG adoption survey to generate evidence on how Nigerian MSMEs understand, apply, and benefit from ESG practices. The survey covered over 300 MSMEs across Nigeria's 6 geopolitical zones, and it captured quantitative data and qualitative insights through online responses and in-person engagements. The survey shows that ESG awareness among Nigerian MSME is growing with 72% of respondents being aware of ESG. So there's a heightened awareness of ESG now. 67% already practice some environmental or social measure. However, only 28% have formalized ESG policies into their psyche. Funding and technical capacity remain the biggest barriers, while young entrepreneurs and agro-processors lead the adoption compared to older and female-led enterprises. Overall, the findings highlight the need for targeted financing, capacity building, enhanced ESG-linked incentives, and like Achenyo spoke about, collaboration and value chain participation, so that MSMEs can move from the level of awareness to sustainability impact. Thank you very much, Achenyo, for your time. So on that note, ladies and gentlemen, it is time for the unveiling of the Bank of Industry's MSME Impact report. And it is at this point in time my utmost pleasure to call on stage the MD CEO of the bank, Dr. Olashukwu. We'll welcome our partner, AFD, Mahmoud, to please come on stage. And all my fellow executive directors, Bank of Industry, please join us on stage as we move to the unveiling. Thank you. Perfect.
You need to stick with me. I can be more than you know. I'll be your best friend. Hold the hand, hit the ball, I think the line, baby, everything you need. You can find it anywhere.
Ladies and gentlemen, the formal unveiling of the Bank of Industry's ESG adoption by Nigerian MSMEs. Being the maiden event, I thought we would give it. Let's keep it up. Let's keep it going.
Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together. And right there on the screen, you could see the QR code. You could just scan. It takes you straight to the report. Thank you so much. Please just put our hands together one more time, please. At this point, I would like to quickly call on two persons, very important, to be joining us on stage now. But just to mention as well that you could scan the QR code on the screen, and then you get to see the report which has just been unveiled. Okay, so please do that so you can have that on your mobile devices. We're just going to wait a little more, just a few more seconds, so you could scan. While you're doing that, I would like to call on the Chief Sustainability Officer, Bank of Industry, Eniola Akinshete, to please join me on stage, please. I'd also like to call on CEO Bienfair Obiora Oyeso to also join her on stage, at this moment. They will be giving us the event recap and the vote of thanks.
Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you very much for staying on up until this time. It's been 2.5 hours of impactful discussions, very insightful and enlightening conversations. And I would really like to thank the panelists and all of you here present. Just to give a recap on all the conversations that we've had here so far, I think what is exciting and instructive, Obias, you can confirm, is that there's the same storyline across all conversations that we've had today. And that is that you cannot have the pillars stand on their own, the E, the S, the G, they have to be interwoven. And beyond being interwoven, they also have to align or be embedded in the business model of SMEs today. The challenges that occur, but I think the feedback that we've also had from our panelists and from our fireside chat is that you take it in baby steps. It's not a sprint. It's a marathon, and so you should be encouraged as SMEs to carry on with the mantra of embedding ESG principles into your activities. I think for me the highlight is that all that has been said here today is actually confirming what we saw in the reports when we had the survey. That survey, as Mr. Akinde had mentioned, was carried out over 300 MSMEs that are BOI customers. And the story is the same. There is an understanding that ESG is there, but then to adopt is the challenge. But there is excitement to want to take on that adoption. And so collaboration, as one of the questions or comments that was made today, is critical among ecosystem actors to see the growth of ESG or the adoption of ESG among SMEs in Nigeria. Over to you.
All right. Thank you very much, Eniola. On behalf of my company and everyone who's been part of this, I just want to say a big thank you to everyone who's been part of this event. We want to thank particularly the executive management with Dr. Shupo Lucy for supporting this vision. A lot of people see ESG as something that's, up there for the big companies, the Dangotes, the Boas, the Access Banks of the world. But the truth is that until mass adoption happens, we're not going anywhere. It's like, doing private banking and wealth management. Until we had financial inclusion come up and really, as a win, then we now saw the fintechs come up. And today, even Okada drivers, people selling on the streets, they all have bank accounts. So that's the vision that BOI has tried to take with this particular event, until we have the little SMEs talking about, corporate governance, talking about, renewable energy, talking about, gender balance in terms of hiring, in terms of their board composition. We still have a long way to go. So we're very grateful for the opportunity to work with BOI for this event. I want to especially thank Eniola. She's been my shepherd, in bringing this event together. I want to thank the MD, Dr. Lucy, Mr. Akinde, Mr. Omar Shekarau. Jide is somewhere. Jide's team have been awesome. We want to thank everybody that took time out of their day to come for this event today. We really appreciate you, and be rest assured that next year's event will be much, much bigger, much, much better, much more enriching. Thank you very much, Eniola.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Please, I'm sure we can do much better. Let's put our hands together. Thank you. And thanks to Being Fair. They're the co-organizers of this event. So, if you're posting pictures, you're making memories of the very first edition, please don't forget to use the hashtag BOIESG conference. Hashtag BOIESG conference. All right, let me wait for you to take note of that. Well, I'm sure you have. We want to also announce that there's lunch, as usual. We need to take care of you, our distinguished guests. And to all our guests who are equally here, we'd like you to equally wait. We have some gift items to equally share. So you see, I'm using the word equally, back to back. All right? Because you know what the Sustainable Development Goals are, right? So thank you so much. While we would open the floor for more networking and connection, we want to say thank you for coming. Don't forget to tell far and wide the good things that has happened here today. Don't also forget to use the hashtags. And at the same time, don't forget to connect with each and every one that you need to connect with. It's been a pleasure hosting the very first Bank of Industry ESG conference here in Lagos. Please, let's put our hands together for Bank of Industry one more time. And thank you for coming. We'll see you again very, very soon. Until then, stay safe and have a beautiful lunch. Thank you. Please don't forget to pick up your mobile devices, your phones, your bags. Please, let's stay security